turn it off and restart it. Have you tried restarting it?
Have you tried that? Yeah. Yes. It's amazing how often that works, too.
Right?
That's nice. Well, they can hear you, so hopefully they do it.
Mm-hmm.
We have to roll with the punches here. That's thank you.
And it was done like an hour and a half faster, so I get paid by the word around here.
Well, when we were on the Boundary Waters, we hammock camped, so it was fantastic. No need for a cot. We hung hammocks, and it was awesome because then
You were out there with the lions and tigers and bears?
Wait, so were you not inside? Wait, what about the bugs and everything? Mosquitoes? You didn't worry about any of that?
Oh no, the hammocks have a built-in mosquito net, so they're camping hammocks, not a regular backyard.
Okay.
Yeah. So it has a mosquito net and a rain fly. But then
you're ready to go?
Rocky there. You don't have to worry about.
Madam Chair, can you hear us now?
Kind of always in this great. I'll tell you, it also cuts down on the snoring, so that's a good thing too.
Not yet?
Wow. You're kind of elevated.
I don't know
So it
any
was great. It was very warm and lovely. And, yeah, so hammocks and all this in the trees.
That is great.
Yeah, that is something.
Oh,
I have to keep watching the text.
Chair Carter,
Yeah, we're getting
So,
Chair.
Raphael, I saw your lips move, but I didn't hear anything. So your sound might not be on. We could test it. Yeah,
Oh yeah, we can't hear Raphael. Melissa says they can hear us now. I mean, then
Can you-
she probably. Melissa,
yes,
we can hear
but you can't
now.
you can't hear us though, can you?
Yep, Sheena says she can hear. She's like, oh, we can hear.
Can you hear me now?
Now, yes.
Now we can.
Yes.
Now we can.
It must be my.
Chair Carter, Chair Carter. Chair Carter, can you hear me?
Okay, so we are working on it.
It's nice that for the first time we're doing Zoom, we can work all these bugs out. You'd think it was the first time we've used this. The way
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. What were you asking, sister?
Oh, I had just saw that you were talking and couldn't hear you, so I just wanted to make sure you tested.
I did. I could hear you guys, but you couldn't hear
They
me.
can't hear the people in the chambers.
Isn't there a song about that? I can see your lips move, but I can't hear you. Or something.
We are all
I think there's a song
1,000 is
about
what you're
that.
seeking.
So apparently they are calling Tony's name in the council
tough to
chamber.
lips-
We
lip
cannot
sync with
hear
a
it.
mouse.
Hear them, right? But they can hear them on the TV, huh?
That was good.
They can hear. Oh, they can hear us on the TV. Yeah.
They can
Wow.
hear us on the TV. They can hear the
everybody.
council chambers on the stream.
But
They haven't.
We can't hear you. Sorry,
Okay, so then
council.
you can pop.
This is amazing.
Most interesting meeting.
Chair Carter, this is Janet. Chair Carter, can you hear us?
Can't hear Janet. Sorry, I'm getting text from Sheena, so I
Yeah.
know what's being said, but I can't hear it either.
And I am getting texts from Ryan to let us know that they are still working on it. They know the problem, and they're attempting to fix them.
We're on the air. Start the meeting.
Okay.
At first, we thought that no
Chair
one
Carter?
heard them from the chambers, but Sheena says that they are heard, that she is hearing them, right?
Chair
Well,
Carter.
Melissa and Sheena both said they can hear us now, so they can hear us on the feed or whatever the public's
After
hearing. They can
hear
hear.
the chambers. After
Oh.
they can hear from the chambers.
Can they, Nicole? I'll ask her.
Any
Oh,
chance
and they
this
can hear
works?
Janet. I just heard from Melissa. She must have heard you say that. She did hear you say that because they can hear us.
Chair Carter, can you hear us?
Yes, they can hear Janet.
Oh,
Chair Carter, can you hear me?
So it's getting better.
so
Do they want us
outside
to
can hear-
all go out and come back in, or
Okay.
is that not a possibility? I mean,
That's not, they're not asking for that, since all of us are
Okay.
impacted, it's probably on that end, I would
yeah.
assume.
I think so.
Hello?
So it sounds like at this point, the public can hear the chambers and all of you. And we can hear you. You just
Well, Tony and Jim, you have a good weather weekend, weather week, it looks like. I mean, wow. Amazing.
It's perfect. The best week we've had.
Yeah,
But I don't know how to do that exactly.
okay. And so we're, I think, going to have to then postpone the meeting until a later time. Should we do a time certain?
Um, how about,
Or recess the meeting?
well, you never convened it, so you don't have to recess anything. You have
But that's true, we never convened it, you didn't hear.
So I'm looking at John Kelly, who's saying this right now. I think if you
Yeah.
want to make a time certain, we can. We may lose our historical society partner. I don't know what to do about that though, because you can't hear her anyway.
You can hear.
I will be as prepared as possible, John, to speak to the item, and we can go through it from that direction, and you have others.
Okay.
And you could say, let's come back at 9:30 and try then.
Will we lose Amy?
I don't know. She was coming by Zoom. We'll work on keeping.
Jenna O'Rourke, I can hear about
Do you
Hannah.
think 9:30, 15 minutes, or
I think we should check in. How about
we'll
that?
try it? Okay, thank you, bye-bye. You heard that. So we may lose our Historical Society visitor. We're trying to make sure that we're able to hold on to her and Amy. We need to recess or just try again. We did not call the meeting to order at all. And
Right.
so we are going to simply try again to convene our meeting at 9:30. That'll be a check-in for all of us. So let's take a break and check back in at 9:30, all right?
So, Tony,
Yes,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. So we should go out and then come back in?
I think we should. You
Okay.
know, I do believe that it's on their end, but as long as we have the time, let's go out and come back.
Gotcha. All righty.
Okay.
All right, see you later, 9:30.
Later.
Just this, you know.
I go to a judge and throw my hands out and be like,
Right, right.
I don't know how to run a meeting if I can't talk to this.
And I'll stand in front of you and say,
Our defense is
yeah.
still a rail there. We haven't taken it out.
Just rebooting Zoom. You're rebooting Zoom.
Well, I mean, should I like turn this off and turn it on? I mean, I don't know how far you want me to go. They all want to rejoin, right?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, I think most of them are probably going to meet. Is there a way to tie in some sort of conference calling mechanism?
Conferring with Jesse versus in a meeting on his own. Responding to me.
the site. So, we run a Zoom meeting and we would record it. I don't know that it would be broadcast. I'm just saying we could have, we can do that. We can still run a
So I can hear you, Tony. I can hear the boardroom on the TV, but I can't hear it in my headset.
Come to think of it, turn our phones down here. Probably everyone isn't set up where they have television.
Yeah, I feel like I can hear them now.
Yeah.
Can we go check that out and see if we can get it? Okay, and I'll call her and ask for another check. Okay.
Maybe one of them should test a mic.
Can the Zoom meeting hear the room now?
Here we go. Hello? Hello?
Hi. Okay, I can hear you by the way you're talking into your mic, just FYI. Oh, so am I.
Can anyone on Zoom hear?
That was Nick talking. Hello?
Posted online afterwards to meet the public requirement of the public having access to a meeting. The meeting was noticed. With a staff member in that space so that the public could view the meeting. What you're going to lose is you're going to lose the
Okay. All right. Gotcha.
Could you get my laptop back from Tina and give it to her? I'm gonna have to have it back because I don't expect this to be the live.
You got your, to Tina? You gave it to Tina?
Right.
I think we should call this Tech Tuesdays.
Yeah. Yeah. You spend a lot of time coming up with these things, huh, Trista?
It just came to me. It just came.
Can they hear us now? Can the public hear us now?
Yes.
Or we were back on?
See, are you there?
I know, yeah, it really, I'm somehow so used to, and t-shirts and polo shirts and shorts and, yeah.
Trista said she heard us for a minute, but then it was quiet.
I'm sorry. I wanted you all to hear the conversation, but then that meant the whole world heard it. So I had to mute. Per Ryan, they are just not having luck in the chambers. And the alternative that we can actually implement is for him and those critical parties to go into his office, and we would be on Zoom then with him, inviting guests into the office as needed to present because of social distancing requirements. He would then be able to convene, we would convene our meeting. Unfortunately, it would not be able to run on broadcast until later, but to meet the public requirement of the meeting, he would have another computer set up outside his office where if anyone were to come in, they would be able then to view it on that computer. That would enable us then to convene our meeting by Zoom at the time and then to have it available to anyone who comes in to view live. but then to post it later online. And that is the decision that I think is best for us so that we can move forward without canceling and scheduling to another time. It's 9:38. We will be convening at 10 a.m. via Zoom into the county manager's office with this video available live to anyone who might show up to view it. Any questions?
Will we be postponing the workshop?
No. The idea will be to convene from his office for the meeting.
Can the Zoom meeting hear
and
us?
for the workshop to follow.
Okay.
Can anyone on Zoom hear us?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, they said yes. Okay, let's go.
What are we saying?
Okay, let's go.
Wait.
Thank you. We're gonna hold for a moment just for everybody to get reset.
Chair Carter, we have to wait. The county manager went down to the county manager's office to try and set it up, so we'll get a hold of him, but if you could please wait for 2 minutes?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you calling her?
Oh, but of course, when there's an alternative, Victor,
There was a wire unplugged in the back of a rack, got yanked out.
No, seriously.
Tony,
yes.
All right.
Yes.
Well,
is the executive session right after the board meeting?
Hey, stop.
yes.
You can come back up. You and
Let me
Ryan,
just look.
because you got
It actually is the board
Okay,
meeting,
so
isn't
it
it?
is-
It's part of the board meeting. Or, isn't it the board meeting?
No, the
Oh.
workshop follows during the
Oh,
board
okay.
meeting.
Yeah.
And then the executive session is at time certain, 1:30.
Okay.
And
The workshop is during the board meeting, yeah, it's a,
Correct.
yeah.
I'll be phoning in. I think you got word for the executive session.
Yes.
Because I'll be on the
Yes.
move. Okay.
All right. Yeah, thank you. And in fact, I will likely be phoning in for that too. I think,
Okay.
I want to get back to the cabin. Oh, well, it's known now. Okay, so let me see if we're ready to go. Janet, can you hear me? Are we ready to go?
Let's have some fun, let's do it. You guys talk?
There he is.
Okay, everybody's here.
Thank you. The Ramsey County Board of Commissioners meeting is now called to order, thankfully. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Fretham,
Here.
Matas Castillo,
Here.
McDonough,
Here.
McGuire,
Here,
Ortega,
Aye.
Reinhardt,
Here.
Carter.
Here. Thank you very much. Commissioner McGuire, would you please say the Pledge of Allegiance for us while the rest of us go on mute?
yes, Madam Chair. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much for the Pledge of Allegiance. The agenda of our today's meeting, August 11th, is presented. Is there motion and a second, please?
So moved.
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Commissioner Ortega McGuire. Are there any questions or comments on the agenda? If not, clerk, please call the roll.
McGuire,
Aye.
Ortega,
Aye.
Reinhardt,
Aye.
Fretham,
Aye.
Matas Castillo,
Aye.
McDonough,
Aye.
Carter.
Aye. Thank you very much. And the minutes from our August 4th meeting are before us for approval. Is there a motion and a second?
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioners McDonough and Maris Castillo. Are there any questions or comments on the minutes? If not, would the clerk call the roll, please?
McGuire,
Aye.
Ortega,
Aye.
Reinhardt,
Aye.
Fretham,
Aye.
Maris Castillo,
Aye.
McDonough,
Aye.
Carter.
Aye. Thank you very much. And for our administrative agenda, I'll call on Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to move item number 5 from the Information and Public Records Service Team. It's regarding St. Paul City Hall, Ramsey County Courthouse Council Chambers Art Project, and yes, we all want to pull this for discussion. And then I'd like to move item number 6, which is the county attorney from the county attorney's office, a master contract with Justice Point for pretrial services and diversion services.
Second.
Thank you very much. There is a motion and a second. Any discussion on the agenda? Would the clerk please call the roll? Thank you.
Both items were pulled, Madam Chair.
I don't think
No?
Second?
Oh, I'm
No.
sorry.
No.
Okay,
Second item
my
was not
apologies.
pulled.
Thank you, my apologies. All right.
That's all right.
McGuire,
Aye.
Ortega,
Aye.
Reinhardt,
Aye.
Fretham,
Aye.
Maris Castillo,
Aye.
McDonough,
Aye.
Carter.
Aye. And thank you very much. We are going back up then to item number 5, which was pulled. And I'd like to call on the county manager to introduce our guests who are with us this morning, I believe, to share information about the Information and Public Records Service Team item, the St. Paul City Hall Ramsey County Courthouse Council Chambers Art Project. County Manager O'Connor.
Madam Chair, could we have a mover and a seconder, please?
Madam Chair,
I
I'd
would
like to
move it
move
for
it.
discussion.
Thank you. Thank you.
Or I'll second it, I guess.
There is a motion and a second, and thank you for that. We are now in discussion on this item. I'll call on the county manager to introduce the topic.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to go right to our guests because I know they're on a tight timeline and have hung with us here this morning. I'm introducing to you Molly Spillman, the curator at Ramsey County Historical Society, who will briefly mention parts of the project and where we have ended up. And then Councilmember Amy Brenmoen is also joining us via Zoom today and will be our second presenter. Ms. Spillman.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm glad the technical difficulties are over now. I am Molly Spillman. I'm the curator and archivist for the Ramsey County Historical Society, and I am stepping in for Chad Roberts, who is our director and who has been most closely involved in this project. However, I've got some notes and I'm well aware of how the project has gone. Ramsey County Historical Society has been so pleased to be involved with this project and in leading, creating and seeking out task force members from the community, arts community and just community leaders in general to select and work within their various realms to have 4 artists, the final 4 artists who created the new community-driven, community-involved panels that will be, with your approval today and the City Council's approval, be ready to be installed in the next few days to be here in the council chamber to better reflect today's society and today's community. I've been asked to talk a little bit about that installation. The 4 winning artists were given parameters, sort of mathematical ratios of how large to make their art, because obviously we can't have their art be 16 feet tall. And so they did that, and 3 of the 4 art pieces, original art pieces, are about 5 feet tall, according to that ratio, and then the 4th piece is the next smallest size, according to the ratio that was given to us by our printers. The artwork the original artwork has been scanned and will be printed on a fabric material and put on, again, temporary material frameworks in the alcoves of the Norton panels, so that there will be no damage occurring to the historic nature of this building, nor to the original nor to the original murals. I think that's sort of a quick summary of the project. If you have questions of me that I can answer, I'd be happy to do so.
And Madam Chair, I believe we have Councilmember Brenmo, and I'm going to see if she has joined us now via Zoom. It sounds as I'm getting a thumbs up that she has, and so we'll go to Council President Brenmo next, and then we'll come back to discussion and questions.
Thank you very much. I have no questions at this time. We appreciate your presentation, Molly. We'll go to Councilmember Brenmoen and come back for questions. Thank you, Councilmember, for being here with us.
Thank you so much, Chair Carter. It is wonderful to be here virtually. Listening to Molly reminds me of how much I miss coming to work. We are so lucky to work in a gorgeous mid-century building with the wood, the marble, the brass, even like the hand railings and our elevators are incredibly beautiful. And then, you know, the deep memorials and of course the vision of peace. It is a really incredible space. And while the oversized murals in the council chambers are certainly era appropriate, they always seemed a bit amiss to me. Because I think the council is a place in our building where the community members get to interact personally with government. And at least in the city council meetings, they're often coming asking for empathy, understanding, creativity, and compassion. And with a backdrop of 4 murals with like 20-foot tall white men standing really on the top of small figures of folks, men laboring, African-American men, indigenous men, and the utter and complete absence of women is not welcoming for most people in Ramsey County. And change was needed to align with our values. The problem has been pointed out and discussed over the years many times. In fact, I keep a Pioneer Press article from the 80s on my desk where Ruby Hunt was calling for change way back then, but it proves to be work that is rolling a rock up a hill and requires political will and tenacity. And I am just very grateful that the full St. Paul City Council supported the work of Vice President Naker and I in the effort to change this, and that we found very willing partners in the Ramsey County Commission, especially Chair Reinhardt at the time, and then Chair McDonough as he took over, and the Ramsey County Historical Society, who I was surprised in some ways was a willing partner. I think that they brought a voice of just process and making sure that we did this right to the table, but we're recognized that it was time to make this move. And once we figured out our method of installation, which was really not an easy task, it took a bulk of our time. We turned the selection over to our community-led task force, which Molly was talking about. And I've just been so impressed with the way that they've dug in and owned this project, selecting the artists, and now presenting us with very inspiring gallery that we will, when we return to chambers, hopefully sooner than later, be able to look at and you know, join our community members in having a space that is welcoming for all. So just so grateful to the Ramsey County Commission, the leadership that helped us finally take this long overdue project and get it moving forward. I know that Council Vice President Naker has been a real driver in this as well, and I want to acknowledge that work and just the full support of the St. Paul City Council as we move forward with this, and thanking our task force and of course the artists. I cannot wait till next week when we get to tour and see our new looming figures and our new decorations in the council chambers. So thank you so much for letting me be here and participate in this meeting. The partnership has meant the world. Thank you so much.
And thank you very much, Councilmember Brenmoen. We really appreciate your participation and your being here this morning with us to share with us your excitement and information about this process. I know that there are a couple of questions already, and so I will just call to get started on Commissioner Mary Jo McGuire and then Commissioner Reinhardt. Commissioner McGuire?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. And just first of all, to say thanks to all of the people, Councilmember Brenmoen, Councilmember Naker, the Historical Society, our board, Commissioner Reinhardt, McDonough, Carter, all of us that have supported this effort to really have these images reflect more accurately our history of our state. And so I just thank you for that. It's been a great effort. It's a long time in coming, as you said. Commissioner Ruby Hunt was wanting this from the start and from her days, and I thank her for her leadership way back then in bringing that forward. But so I'm grateful that we're moving forward on this, and that this is coming to fruition. I am going to just reflect now a couple of comments that I heard just recently, last night and this morning, from two of our Indigenous state legislators, Mary Kunesh-Podein and Representative Jamie Becker-Finn, who heard from members of the Dakota community that they were feeling left out of this process. And so what I'm going to ask is for the Historical Society to talk about the process, and I'm just going to just read a few comments that we've heard from the community that they feel where the artist was selected from a community and members of the Dakota community felt they were left out of the process. From Mary Kunesh, from Representative Kunesh-Podein, they feel that the process was backwards. They kept bringing, the members of the community brought up this issue, but they felt that they weren't being listened to. Their organization, Oyate Hoitonen, works on cultural appropriation of American Indian images and narratives, and they have especially deep roots in Dakota communities. The Dakota community feels there has been inadequate communication on this. People pulled back from participation when the plan was to cover the murals, but now they are being replaced, so that was what the Dakota wanted all along, but they feel that the American Indian artist who was chosen is the Anishinaabe and Metis, and using a pan-Indian approach, Dakota people feel once again not heard in the process and further made invisible in this important retelling of the story of St. Paul. We thought you would want to know. And I just wanted to that those are concerns by this community, and I just wanted to get that on the record that we are hearing this, or we heard this recently, just today I heard this. And so I know that this has been a long time process, and I support so much that we're in this process of replacing these images. And I know that not everything can always be perfect, but I just want to know that the process was that we tried to be inclusive of all of these views. And so could you talk a bit about the process? Because this was disturbing when I heard this morning about this. I was really hopeful that the community would have come together and celebrated in unison about this. And so could you talk a bit about that?
Sure, Commissioner McGuire, and we are aware of that as well. The task force application was put out through all of our partners as far as our own website. I know the city and county websites, and we do have through our previous connections with the Dakota community, some partners in that community. And so the task force at the beginning was 20 members. And then through just, again, a long time span, a number of years it's taken to get up to this point. The task force was chosen, the final 20, or the first 20 were chosen in February of last year. And then just through, life circumstances, it dwindled down finally to 7 people. And that task force, I guess one of the main response, I think, are the resolutions that the task force put forth to the commissioners and the city council to think about that, to think about equity and inclusion for all community members, especially or maybe in light of communities that feel underrepresented in this initial art that will be a part of this council chambers at first. There are 3 resolutions that were brought forth to the council and the commissioners, and that 3rd resolution addresses that specifically, that new projects need to be considered and potentially different ways to encounter and advertise the opportunities to various, maybe very, very focused communities, maybe the Dakota community, maybe the Hmong community, African American communities, very specifically might be an option to address and respond to those concerns.
And if I could just follow up, Madam Chair, and so that is part of a resolution, and that would be ongoing. I mean, now that we have this artwork already completed, then that would just, is that going to start like now, or I just want to make sure that I'm helping be part of that message or that voice that gets this message out to these communities. So that when will that be starting? That next process? Just curious.
I might call on Ryan to speak to that.
Madam Chair, Commissioner McGuire, that Resolution 3 says by the end of 2020, we need to continue a program in collaboration with St. Paul and the St. Paul or in the Ramsey County Historical Society around what that process looks like. It is not defined here today. Today is, it lays out a path to do that and recognize that there remain gaps. I do not come with specific dates or a plan at this point. I would actually like to make a point of starting out by approaching communities that have either expressed concern or we do not see as reflected in the work as some that we will see in the first 4 pieces of artwork, and begin the conversation there before laying out anything definitive from this perspective.
And I really appreciate that. Just thank you so much for that. I mean, I understand with 4 murals, we are not going to be able to totally reflect the entire history of our state, and that we will be in an ongoing then conversation with what our next murals might look like to have an ongoing reflection of our history. And so I will just say I'm concerned. I feel bad that members of the community feel this way. I will just pledge to continue to work with them and hope that their views would get reflected in future images. So thank you, Madam Chair, for letting me bring this forward. I appreciate our legislators coming forward with this, and just this is a community that we have obviously that was here before us, and we definitely want to reflect that appropriately and accurately. So thank you.
I want to thank you for raising the question, Commissioner McGuire, and all for the responses that we've received. There are a number of hands up. I do know that Commissioner McDonough has something to say with respect to this point, and so I am going to call on Commissioner McDonough at this time on this point, and then we'll go back up to Commissioner Reinhardt. Thank you, Commissioner McDonough.
Yep, thanks, Chair Carter. And Molly and Ryan talked about the 3rd recommendation that came from the task force, which is really the important piece here, because Commissioner McGuire, as you mentioned, 4 pieces of artwork in no way can reflect the diversity of our community. Not one piece of artwork can reflect the whole African-American experience in our community, right? There's going to be different perspectives, Native American community, the Hmong community, Latinx communities. And so they're recommending this is an ongoing process to continue to engage with the community, and part of, what the resolution does is direct Ryan to come up with and continue this process, working with community and the Ramsey County Historical Society to come up with a budget. There was a budget for this first piece, but then to come up with a budget to continue to play that out. And then just to address, and I did get some reach outs too, also from a couple of the folks that I worked with early on this, and there was some disappointment, and it was expressed to us from the very beginning from the Native American community. And I think the process has evolved now to where they have confidence, which I think is a really good sign, right? They didn't have confidence in our process early enough, and so they didn't participate. And we moved forward knowing that this was going to be an evolution and trying to be responsive and trying to listen to community. So I think I'm confident we're at a spot now that we will continue to engage with community, all of the community. And there's other parts of community that we're probably not even hearing from now that I hope will be responsive as we go out for more perspectives within the community. And I think that's, again, one of the neat things about this, the way that we install these, that we can rotate artwork in and out as we see fit. And, people who sit in our chairs and city council chairs 10, 15 years from now may have a whole set of artwork that we're not even thinking about by the time they get there. So I think the process is good. It's set up for that. And I'm really glad that we did get to hear from the community their concerns and making sure that we address those concerns moving forward. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner McDonough. I'm going to call on Commissioner Reinhardt, and then Commissioner Maris Castillo and Commissioner Fetland. Commissioner Reinhardt.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Commissioner McDonough. Yes, this process has been going on for quite a few years, and with the Ramsey County Historical Society stepping up and setting up not just how do we deal with the 4 murals, but how do we deal with this in the long term. Because as we were talking, Commissioner Ruby Hunt wanted to make changes, but the reality is that would have been about 40 years ago. And we probably would not be happy with what was there, especially if it was something that could not be changed. So one of the things that I really appreciate about this is these can be changed, and they will be. But there's other artwork, there's other things within our community that we need to address. And so this is the beginning, and I think, again, Commissioner McDonough, you said it very well. This is the beginning of this process, and even when I think back on when this came to, when the city of St. Paul came to me when I was chair of the county board, and we started talking about this, how far we have come from then, and the technology that did not exist then to be able to do what we're doing today. And so, it has taken us a long time, but I honestly believe that as we move forward with this, this is the beginning, we'll move forward with this, and we will be able to adjust, and future boards will be able to adjust to make sure that we're getting as many voices as possible heard. So I am very excited about this, and but viewing it very much so as the first step.
Chair Carter, if I may, I don't have the resolution in front of me, but if I recall, it also directs us to take a look at what other opportunities within this building besides just those 4 murals in the council chambers. There are lots of opportunities maybe on the first floor where we have entrances. So that is a part of the work too, is how do we actually grow this so that we have more than just 4 opportunities, and 4 opportunities that are, even though they could get really creative, are restricted by that very tall, narrow thing. And we can have a lot of flexibility if we start looking at other opportunities within this building to get really creative with the community. So I see Ryan shaking his head, and Victoria shaking their head. So
yes, and that was my point as far as it being the beginning. That is what the 3rd resolution states, is that this is where we're starting, but it's not, one and done kind of thing. And I do have a question about the, when we, Commissioner McDonough moved the resolution and I seconded it, I'm assuming that that is for all 3 of the resolutions, but I wanted to make sure that we had done that correctly.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, I think we took that to be you were moving the full item and all resolutions associated with it.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Commissioner Castillo.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I also just wanted to comment that this is really comes from great leadership and vision to make a change like this. So I appreciate Councilmember Brenmoen and Commissioner McDonough, your work and leadership on this. It's really important that we can take a look at things that are not reflective of our community and make those changes. And I know that that's not always easy, and it is controversial, and it took a lot of wrestling. And so I just want to thank you for your leadership in getting us to this point. We often recognize that we are on sacred Dakota land here in Ramsey County, and so I think that's really important, not just in the recognition of our land, but in the people that have helped create this space. And so we're talking a lot about, and we kind of include Indigenous communities as one whole and reflective. Our history here in this space is about Dakota, and so to me, it's really important that we make sure that we are inclusive of the Dakota people specifically and be reflective. And so I am anxious and eager to see, as we have gotten better in all of this work in our community building as we go, how we include the Dakota people so that they also have a panel or other place reflective of the space. We don't have to capture Minnesota history in our Ramsey County Courthouse. This is Ramsey County history and what's here, and so I think that's really important that we do that and continue to move this work forward. We keep getting better at this at Ramsey County. I'm really proud of the work and the community engagement, and we will keep getting better and inclusive. And the idea of creating more panels that can rotate or other spaces that we can reflect and build, art or representation of that community is really important. So I know our offices are closed. I have my sacred water and Badote exhibit here in our office, and someday when we're open, people can come and take a look, as we are, in various spaces, have the opportunity to include community. So thank you again for your leadership and for this work moving forward.
Commissioner Fretham, please.
Thank you, Chair Carter, and thank you, Commissioner McGuire. I know we both received the feedback from Representative Becker-Finn since she represents places in both of our districts. So I appreciate you raising that for us. And, I wasn't involved on the front end of this because it was before I was here. And I hope at some point we can come back and touch base as we continue to reflect on our work and think about how the process was handled and how we might have done things differently, especially as we reflect on the work and how we've continually evolved in our race equity work, and looking at how we're using our Trusted Messengers program now with COVID and how that might have resulted in different outcomes in this work. It sounds like there was a lack of trust on the part of the Dakota community here, and they lost trust in the project and stepped away and didn't move back into the project when things shifted. So the one question I ask is it looks like in what we're passing today that we are conditionally accepting Resolution 3 of the Council Chamber Artwork Task Force, and we're providing direction to the county manager to return a proposal to us for continuation of the program. And I'm wondering if we can ask that when our county manager brings back that proposal, that there could be something in that reflecting back some more specific, like Commissioner Matascasio said, something more specific about continued engagement with the Dakota community specifically, and how that engagement could be reflected in future projects in the Ramsey County Courthouse.
Thank you, Commissioner Fretham. We've heard from everyone so far, and I believe I thought I had other hands still up, but I do not. And I just want to share that in what we've heard today, we have heard about a process that has not been short, it has not been simple, but it has been thoughtful. And in the process, midway, things have changed in such a way as to recognize the original desire of people who had come to the table early. And I'm thankful that the process took into account what had been heard early on and included that perspective in its final recommendations. I also share the sense that we want to continue to engage specifically with the Dakota community, and given its unique role in Minnesota history, including that we are on land that was owned by the Dakota, we need to continue that engagement in earnest as we move forward from this beginning to a more inclusive recognition visually in our chambers of all of our people, and specifically of our beginnings here in Ramsey County. I know that that is the intent as we move this resolution forward, as we move the resolved statements forward that recognize we want that continued engagement, and we do want to pilot this work in such a way as the Dakota even would recognize that we are recognizing, respecting, and also wanting to reflect that specific role here. I'm very supportive of the work that is moving forward to engage this change in our council chambers. Very appreciative of all of the leadership that has endured this process over time and resolved in this way to respect that participation. I also am hearing from a couple of the members here the desire to designate in this resolution that continuing engagement. I want to hold for your thoughts in that regard as we move this resolution forward as to whether there would be an amendment to include a specific recognition of the role of the Dakota, given their ownership and given their role in our unique Ramsey County history.
Madam Chair, if I could add just one piece as a reminder for the board of the ongoing partnership and dialogue happening with the Native American community specific to Ramsey County. And there is an overlapping piece of the Ojibwe community history that also does tie. I mean, it's predominantly Dakota, but this has been, and the reason I bring that up is through our St. Paul Indians in Action Ramsey County partnership that has existed over the last 3 years. This is an ongoing piece of conversation. And by way of reminder, we have a group that meets quarterly with a group of Native American leaders from our community members selected by the community with staff members from Ramsey County. It's been a cohort of 20 that have gone through a process together. For example, if you were to walk into the Plato building, right now you would see a giant mural or a giant picture, not a mural, excuse me, on the wall, a map of all the Native American sites in Ramsey County, and it renames our county under very different language. That was something that came out of that work together. That was a piece of first education on behalf of our partners, and then staff in our organization saying, let's take that and make that a part of our work. They were also an instrumental body in helping us with our naming policy. And so what I would state is we do have some existing venues to which to go to, and I don't actually believe that venue existed even at the outset of this project. This project predates that partnership truly coming together. And so we do have some spaces already, and I don't want to just single out the Native American community as the only community where those spaces need to exist, but I will use that as the example here. As we talk about merging our existing community engagement and racial equity work with venues that have been worked to be created through our staff and our community in partnership through new and different means, I think outlining in the proposal that comes back to you how we can leverage those spaces to build authentic, ongoing dialogue is something that we could do. And I don't know that anything would be needed to be changed in the resolution to do that. I just wanted to say that out loud if that helps bring any sense of comfort or understanding of how we would approach that going forward.
Thank you for those comments. I also have Commissioner McDonough.
Thanks, Chair Carter. And I do appreciate the conversation and the sensitivity and the history here. But I would use caution on amending the resolution. I think it's in a really good spot right now, and Ryan's really laid out the thoughts of a good plan moving forward. And certainly, the uniqueness of Ramsey County being Dakota land is unique in itself. Well, every one of our communities have their own story and their own uniquenesses. And once we start calling out one versus the other, I just think they're all special, they're all unique, they all got a perspective, and they all deserve to be recognized as we move forward. And if we start calling out one over the other, then we're opening our door for criticism or people feeling left out that we didn't actually call them out. Certainly the task force recognized a couple of other groups already that, weren't a part of, not necessarily weren't a part of this, but they're not reflected in the current 4 panels. So we've got a lot of work to do, and I think the resolution is really positioned well to move forward. This conversation really reflects the feedback that we've gotten in the last couple of days, and I think County Manager Ryan O'Connor's comments here about this path forward should drive some confidence in the community that we're prepared to work with everybody.
Thank you. I have a couple more hands up. Commissioner Reinhardt.
Thank you. And Commissioner McDonough said it very well. I really believe that resolution number 3 and the task force recommendation does encompass this, and I am confident that we will get a report back from the county manager that includes all perspectives as we move forward. Again, this is the beginning, and that's what we're trying to do is be more inclusive and recognizing that this is the first 4 panels, but there's a lot more that can be done and will be done. So I support the resolution as is. Thank you.
Commissioner Fretham.
Honestly, right now, as Commissioner McGuire noted, we received this outreach from our representatives in the last 24 hours without having time to go back and talk to Representative Koneshpatine and Representative Becker-Finn. I can't speak for the Dakota community on whether they're comfortable without some more specific or targeted action. So I don't think I can say right now whether I want to push harder for this or not. We need to talk to the community.
Thank you very much. Are there others that would like to comment at this point? Thank you. Again, as has been said, we all have heard from leadership that has been engaged in this over a long period of time, that has heard many considerations from the community, that has altered its process in order to move forward recommendations that recognize early input, originally not able to have been included. And given that we are at this precipice in time during which we have the opportunity to move this resolution forward, I do agree that there needs to be continued conversation and a recognition of the role, specifically that we are on Dakota land, and that as a part of our history, that is a very critical point to examine and to have explored. I believe that in this process, we are able to do that. You know, we have received resolutions that encompass that ongoing community participation. We have heard today the importance of that ongoing community participation and the importance of recognizing, yes, the roles of our diverse communities and specifically the role of the Dakota in this land. And in this time, we have an opportunity to move a resolution forward. I am going to be supporting this resolution that is before us today, knowing and acknowledging that the conversation that we have had today will not be ignored, but that it is now embedded in our process of moving forward to ensure that recognition takes place. I do not see further hands that are raised. Finally, with great appreciation for all of the participation that we've had, and I saw Commissioner McGuire wave her hand just now, so I am going to, in concluding my remarks and thanks prior to our vote, call on Commissioner McGuire, and then we will move to the vote. Thank you, Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm looking for my hand raising, but lost it for a second there. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to affirm, I appreciate Commissioner Fretham's comments about amending this, and I know we all share this sentiment that I personally also want to be focused on the people that were here before us, and it involves different groups, but I want to make sure that the communities know that we're very committed to looking into this. And if it turns out we need to make a more specific request in one of these resolutions, I believe we can do that at another time. I share Commissioner Fretham's sentiments, and if we go to the community, the Dakota community that we've been hearing from in our elected officials and people that have been sharing that with us, and they feel they need something stronger, I'm willing to work with them on that. So I am prepared to go forward with this now, and just with our commitments that we're going to continue to work on it. Thank you.
Commissioner Fretham, I'm sorry, having difficulty with that mute button.
It's okay. It's okay. Thank you, Chair Carter. I just wanted to be clear that my suggestion was that when the county manager returns a proposal to the county board, which is what we are approving today, that something in that proposal was more specifically calling out Dakota. I am supporting today's proposal.
Thank you so much for all the discussion here, for valuing the input that we have heard throughout the process. And I know that we are now prepared for a vote on the resolution. I'm going to ask the clerk to please call the roll.
McGuire?
Aye.
Ortega?
Aye.
Reinhardt?
Aye.
Fretham?
Aye.
Matas Castillo?
Aye.
McDonough?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye. The resolution passes. Thank you so very much for that vibrant discussion, and thanks to our guest for being here with us and for all of the work that you have done. We look forward now to, within the next week, a tour of the installation. I'm turning now to our agenda, and as always, we have before us today a COVID-19 update. As always, I should say, as we are responding to COVID-19 as the health emergency, as the economic emergency, as all of the many emergencies that it has been in our lives. And I will call on the County Manager O'Connor to begin that update. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, we will, based on the fact we lost some time this morning and we have the Health and Wellness Service team following up today with some of their work, we'll try and fly through this COVID-19 update. There is a lot, so we'll do our best, and I'll start with Public Health Director Kathy Hedin.
Thank you, County Manager O'Connor, and thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. We will go over to the dashboard for the current COVID situation update for Minnesota and Ramsey County. In Minnesota, 61,516 people have tested positive for COVID-19. That's an additional 4,956 since last week. Total cases requiring hospitalization is 5,606. Hospitalized as of yesterday is 320 in our state and 159 in the ICU. Both of those continue to trend upward. Unfortunately, 1,702 people have died from COVID, an additional 46 deaths in the last week across the state. Over to our Ramsey County data, we now have had 7,720 people who have tested positive in Ramsey County, an increase of 766 positive cases over the last week. Total cumulative cases requiring hospitalization in our county is 963, with 294 who have been in the ICU. And unfortunately, 271 people have lost their lives to COVID. That's 7 additional deaths in the last week. The next graph that you see, if we scroll down just to the next one, you see that we flipped the data. So now that you can see that the newer data is now on the left, and you no longer have to slide to the right to see the new daily cases. To go down to the demographic data, we currently, of the 7,720 cases, 33% have been white, 21% Asian, 21% Black, 13% unknown, 10% other, 1% multiracial, and American Indian is now up to 1% of the total cases. Under ethnicity, we're at 16% for Hispanic. And if we look at the ages, we are over 60% of the total cases in Ramsey County are younger than 44 years of age. So we continue to look at that data. If we scroll down, you'll now also see, along with our city data, you also see zip code map. We are keeping an eye on zip codes 55106, 117, 119, and 55104. They continue to be of highest concern. This is where we are focusing a lot of our outreach and testing currently. As we go down, we also have some new information that we provided beyond the death information on our data dashboard, and we continue to update this data as we get it available to us from the Minnesota Department of Health. You can now find the number of COVID-19 tests performed each week in Ramsey County. You'll see there that it's been pretty high with almost 10,000 each week. You'll also see the weekly positivity rate, which for Ramsey County is 6.3%. Minnesota sitting at 5%, Hennepin County and Dakota County both at 7%, and Washington County is at 4%. As well as we can see the weekly case rate, which is now at 10.5 for Ramsey County. The additional information from schools, we continue to work with the Minnesota Department of Ed and Minnesota Department of Health to break down so that we can utilize that data and put it on our dashboard for our schools. The 2-week case rate per 10,000 people in Ramsey County, which is the metric used for schools for the learning model decisions, which is in-person, hybrid, and distance models, updated last week, is now at 19.65 for Ramsey County. That puts Ramsey County school districts very close to the hybrid learning model for all grades. The total approximate number of completed tests in the state is 1,172,118. Remember that you can get this information from our data dashboard by going to www.ramseycounty.us/coronavirus. I'll just give one update about the testing events that we had this weekend. As you know, we had our first 2 testing events this past weekend at Aldrich Arena and Washington Tech, and we'll continue to provide testing at these 2 sites for all weekends the month of August. 1,157 people were tested over a 2-day, 8-hour period. We're so grateful to both the Ramsey County outreach team and to that of our partners at Karen Organization of Minnesota, Hmong American Partnership, and the Hmong Healthcare Professionals Coalition. Our staff and interpreters who speak Hmong, Karen, and Spanish stayed very busy. In addition to testing, education was also provided about patient education, what to expect during the contact tracing process, census, and financial assistance services. This successful weekend of testing couldn't have been done without the help of our partners of mHealth Fairview, the State Emergency Operations Center Testing Group, Ramsey County Medical Reserve Corps, Ramsey County Park and Rec, St. Paul Public Schools, and our Ramsey County Communications team. Demand is high in these zip codes, as you just could see from the zip code map that we showed you. We've scheduled 3,400 appointments for the month of August. The State Testing Center will be providing us with more testing kits as we have exceeded the expectation for the number of needed tests in our area. I'm extremely proud of the dedicated team and staff and volunteers who have made this weekend a success, and I look forward to sharing more information like demographics and positivity rates the next time we meet. As we work to accommodate the walk-up and drive-up demands, we do recommend registering for appointments. Saturdays, again, August 15th, 22nd, and 29th at Aldrich Arena from 2 to 6 p.m. And then Sunday testing will be August 16th, 23rd, and 30th, 2 to 6 p.m. as well at Washington Technology Magnet. Thanks for the opportunity to provide you with another update this week. I'll turn it back over to County Manager O'Connor.
Thank you, Director Hadeen. Madam Chair, members, I have a number of updates I'll just run through quickly on various topics.
County Manager?
Yes, ma'am.
My apologies, please, coming off mute. I do need to call for a question on Commissioner Reinhardt prior to continuing. Commissioner Reinhardt?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did hear from Senator Fong He this weekend during the Aldrich event, or the testing at Aldrich Arena. And I understand that we did actually run out of tests because there was such a demand for it. I know that, and the big concern that he raised with me was the fact that because people were encouraged to pre-register, but it wasn't required, and that's an important part of this. But some people were then there and not able to get the testing done, or some people were turned away, probably because they were out of tests. I'm not sure. But I do think that we need to really ask that people, it's recommended and strongly recommended that you pre-register so that we have a better feel for what is happening there. Again, it's not required, but I think that that's very important. And the message that is sent to the community, if they come and expect that they can get this done and they can't, it's very upsetting to folks. And so he wanted to make sure, and I'm passing this along, that sometimes the price of success is that you get such an overwhelming response, but we need to try to figure out how to make sure that we can balance those needs so that folks aren't feeling like they are going to be turned away. So I wanted to bring that up, and I know that the that Kathy Hadeen talked about that as well, but I think it's important. I'm glad we're getting more tests. But I hope that people will pre-register and know that we really want to make sure that we get everyone tested and people show up at these events. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Reinhardt. I'm sure that our health director would underscore that point as well. I wanted to just check if you had anything additional to say about that.
Madam Chair,
Director Hadeen.
Commissioner Reinhardt, thank you for that point. It's unfortunately a good problem to have, right? We did an amazing amount of outreach and really targeted the outreach to ensure that people who need tests could get them, and that is who showed up early. I believe they went through 230 test kits in a half hour for walk-ups. And so we have communicated that to the State Emergency Operations Center. They are impressed by the amount of outreach that took place and will be supplying us with more testing kits as that's where they come from. We did emphasize the next day that we try to stick to registrations only, but the reality is we're trying to make this as no barrier as possible, and by doing that we really need to be able to accommodate people who show up and don't necessarily have access to online registration. So we'll continue to adapt and make sure that we do our best not to turn people away. It pains us as well to do that, knowing that there's such big need in the community, but I thank you for the feedback.
And thank you for your continuing efforts. Thank you very much for your continuing efforts in that regard. And so we will go then to County Manager O'Connor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tomorrow, there will be an initiative launched through different media channels called A Mask for Everyone. It's been the work of the Racial Equity and Community Engagement Response Team with the Equity Action Circle that prioritizes distributing homemade cloth masks to racially, ethnically, and culturally diverse communities where there's been concern about the availability and wearing of masks. The goal, each recipient will be provided with a homemade cloth mask to help slow the spread of COVID-19, accurate and up-to-date information about the importance of wearing a mask and instructions on how to use and care for that mask. Individuals and families in need of masks can visit ramseycounty.us/a-mask-for-everyone, all said together. It'll be on the website, it'll be there and available. Community groups and small businesses serving racially, ethnically, and culturally diverse communities can also request masks through the program to distribute. We'll distribute them until we run out. There's been thousands and thousands of masks that have been made as a part of this process, and we've engaged the community as a part of the mask making process as well. There are also donation boxes if people have masks that they would like to donate as a part of our Mask for Everyone effort. There are collection boxes available at the City Hall, Ramsey County Courthouse, on the 4th Street entrance side. It'll be an indoor box that's located. The Ramsey County Plato Building, the Ramsey County Government Center East. You would notice these are our Dropbox sites as well. Ramsey County Public Works Building, where we've had a site taking masks since the beginning of the pandemic, and Ujamaa Place. We're working on putting additional sites for donations available in the field as well as we go forward. And finally, donations could also be mailed over to 90 Plato Boulevard. That's the Plato office building. And that address is online to send in masks. So we're trying to take them in as many different ways as possible and ensure that everyone in this community has access to a mask and knows how to wear it. Yesterday, I received an update. The Minnesota Reformer, one of our media outlets, published an article in which our Racial Equity Community Engagement Response Team and our community partners were featured, talking about the work of the Trusted Messenger program, talking about the work of breaking through barriers that government can't break through alone. We will share that article with you as a follow-up to this in case you haven't seen it. It continues to underscore that community is going to tell the story on our response, whether or not we think it's the way we want it to be written. And I think this story shows that the efforts around specific engagement across racial and cultural communities is making a difference. And now that difference is being amplified through means of media that we would not be able to write on our own. And I want to thank the Minnesota Reformer for taking time to write that piece. Our preparedness plan, which is a part of all workplaces across the state under the governor's executive orders about reopening in many cases, and how do you ensure that your workplace is available to open in alignment with all the different public health and process guidelines that need to exist. I just wanted to let you know that our preparedness plan is up online at Ramsey County US on the For Employees page to see the form that's being filled out. Departments are updating that information in real time as we go through our service delivery work, but a comprehensive rewrite of our entire organization's plan will be done by 9 days from today. August 20th is the date, to be exact. We never closed, so we've been on a rolling basis of ensuring we follow public health guidance and plans as we go along. For some organizations, it was this plan that allowed them to then reopen. And so for us, it's been more about staying on top of public health guidance, but this preparedness plan brings it all into one place. It keeps us in compliance with the governor's orders, and it's also a way to bring comfort to residents and employees to understand the work that we're doing as we go forward. Our home meal delivery program that we've been discussing as we go forward has also launched, and that's the focus of today's From the County Manager column and video to the organization. Commissioner Ortega, who chairs that group, is a part of the release coming out and talks about the work to date through the policy action group and everything else, and so he may have a few words that he wants to add here. I'll see in just a second. And the Food and Basic Needs branch in our incident command has been working on this since the beginning. There are 5 home meal delivery partners who were announced as part of this piece, almost $2 million in meals through the end of 2020 to ensure that people, whether quarantining at home, whether they simply are unable to leave their house due to a disability that prevents them from being able to move about, or people who can't leave because they're concerned about contracting COVID and they're in high-risk pools. This program is set up to ensure that people can remain safe and continue to have their basic needs met for themselves and their families throughout the pandemic. It's a really exciting moment, and we're working with some new vendors who have never been in this space before, with a focus on culturally, racially, linguistically accessible services that will meet people across this diverse community, and in many ways ties to your earlier conversation today about there is not one monolithic story or approach. It needs to be a multifaceted approach that welcomes all in this community as we write our story around our COVID response. Finally, we get asked questions. Actually, Madam Chair, I'll pause on that one. Commissioner Ortega, is there anything you would like to add to that specific piece to the update on the home meal delivery from your perspective and work?
Thank you very much. Commissioner Ortega?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ryan, I just want to say, first of all, I want to give a shout out to Julie Kleinschmidt, who's leading our group. She's going to try going into retirement one more time, but she'll be around in case we need her. But Carissa Glatt is taking the lead, and she did an excellent job at Friday's meeting. Yes, we have put out 5 contracts that are culturally diverse and do the things we talked about in terms of reaching the community. We are looking for more folks from the Native American community and the Latinx community. So please pass the word on to anybody that we still doing outreach to see how we could go a little deeper in those communities. We've received many applications, and we'll continue to process those as quickly as possible. We will provide technical assistance. Overall, the committee is moving, quite frankly, very seamless and moving forward. And I just want to thank the staff for all the great work they've done. It continues to be a work in progress, but we're doing the best we can. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. And I appreciate the point of the rolling basis of the RFP is also important to note. This was set up to be able to receive additional partners and bring additional entities on board as we go. It was not a one-shot RFP process. And so as we find additional community partners, work with them to move into this space, this process will now enable that to happen seamlessly as we go forward. My final update that I was about to transition to, we get asked a lot about how much has Ramsey County expended related to COVID-19. In our recent financial report, our obligated spends right now year to date now total approximately $50.9 million in the COVID-19 space. That's a mix of things related to CARES Act funding and things not related to it. $7.5 million in payroll expenses, as we track that, for example, would be a part of that $50 million. But it gives you a general sense of the scope and scale. I always like to tie it to our largest department is slightly under $60 million in Ramsey County. So since the onset of the pandemic, we've basically run our largest department in Ramsey County response now in about a 6-month period. And we have a lot more to come. But it gets to the sense and scale of the response, and we can talk more about that in weeks ahead or if you have questions now. But in the interest of time, Madam Chair, I will stand with Director Hedin for any questions.
Thank you very, very much, and for just reflecting what a large response this has been. And we have been able to observe that people in Ramsey County leadership, together with our community, have really focused together to get this done, and that we continue in that regard. Thank you to Commissioner Ortega in particular for the work around food and basic needs. Are there questions to come before us at this time? Commissioner Reinhardt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it is important for people to understand how much additional work there has been taking place, and the staff, and oh my gosh, the incredible volunteer system. I mean, everything that we have in place here has allowed us to not shut down, but to open in different ways and to make sure that people felt that they know that they are valued, and we're going to try to do everything that we can. I was in a meeting last night that people were thanking us for the work that we had done with the libraries. And just acknowledging the fact that knowing that it is there and that there is a way to get what they need was such a comfort to people across our county. And so, yes, it's different, but it's being recognized that we are really trying to make sure that we're reaching out and meeting the needs. I also was last night on the Maplewood City Council, where they were considering the Perkins and Will community outreach project regarding, well, they call it the ponds, but it's actually much more than the ponds. It's the properties that we have in South Maplewood. And even there, recognizing that there are so many things that we have been working on that have had to take a back seat, and everybody understands that. So I just want you to know that I thank them for their patience. I mean, we were supposed to kick this off in March of 2020. Well, we all know what happened in March of 2020. And so, so things are, you know, they're delayed. And you look everywhere across this county and there are things that people really care about, and they know that we care about them. But they've been delayed. And so we deal with that. But if we hadn't made that pivot when we did, we would not be able to move forward even now with all of these other things. So that was just one example of how the community, our communities, our constituents have also tried to say, okay, we know that this, whatever it is, isn't as critical as our response to COVID, and we understand that. We don't want to we're not going to not do things, but the recognition of that, I think, is pretty impressive across our county, our partners, the cities, the township, the nonprofits. I mean, everybody is coming together because of the way we have set this up. So I just wanted to say thank you, and kudos to staff. It's just been absolutely incredible, and to the commissioners, to this board. The amount of work that we have put in day and night has been really it's been awesome. And so I just wanted to recognize that. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Reinhardt. Commissioner Manis Castillo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to echo Commissioner Reinhardt's comments and gratitude to the staff as well. You know, between the remote testing and the work that has been organized very quickly to get lots of volunteers and people through there, to Kathy Hadeen's help. I know as fall is approaching and school districts are making decisions, she's been working with her staff and team with our charter schools, and I've heard some great comments from school board members of those charter schools as well, and the real careful consideration to help them make decisions about planning and strategy. And so I just wanted to say with tremendous gratitude, thank you to Kathy specifically and her entire team that have really been working. And as Commissioner Reinhardt said, the work continues. And so we have gotten really creative. Many of you know I'm not just a commissioner, but I'm someone who receives county services for my adult son who is developmentally delayed, and the team over at FAS, because he's in a stage of life where he's aging out of his residence, have been working through COVID, through all of the hoops to find placement for him, and it's just really been amazing the amount of work that has been done, and people are working really well. And so I just wanted to say thank you to all the staff and the work and the adjustment as we continue to move through this. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Matas-Castillo. I do not have other hands up. I'll go back to County Manager O'Connor.
No.
And I'm sorry, Commissioner Mary Jo McGuire. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. I just wanted to not let it go unsaid how much I appreciate also the work that's being done. I went and did early voting at our library yesterday at the Ramsey County Library in Roseville, and they were set up so efficiently, so well done. And then also there were also people waiting in line for the computers that are there for Workforce Solutions. And so that program is alive and well, and people were so appreciative of the opportunity to have a computer, go online, look for jobs. And then while they were doing that, we were voting in another section, and the library's open, not open, but people can come and pick up their materials there as well. So our libraries as resource centers are really doing amazing work. And people were really just so appreciative of that opportunity to still access services in that way. And I just want to give another shout out to the drop-offs for absentee ballots. People have really appreciated that they can fill their ballots out and then bring them to a drop-off at a site. That then they don't have to worry about whether the mail is going to get there or not, and they still don't have to go inside. So I have just appreciated all the creativity that we're using to help our residents with the services. And just while I'm on the topic, remind people it's primary day. They can vote in their regular locations now, not in our library, because that was early voting, but to vote in their regular locations today as a civic opportunity and responsibility. So thank you for letting me thank our employees for their great work.
Absolutely. All right, I will return then to County Manager O'Connor.
Thanks, Madam Chair. On Commissioner McGuire's point there at the end, today is primary election day. I want to thank all our election staff. We had a number of staff volunteer from across the organization as well to be a part of this process due to the influx of absentee ballots being cast. We have plans upon plans upon plans we're working through to ensure an effective, transparent, accountable election. And you don't have to look far to read about all the different challenges that the influx of mail-in voting has, but we're confident that we're going to pass today's test with flying colors as we build towards the general election. And our sites are open and voting is happening, pandemic or no pandemic, in a safe way here today. Also on the census side, I'll give more of an update next week. There's been a lot happening around the census, news that we would likely view as unfortunate in terms of increasing the challenges of ensuring everyone gets counted since the date for the Census Bureau concluding its counting operations was moved up by a month. Under the auspices of the pandemic being the reason, although many would argue that the pandemic should actually move the date back instead. So I would just put on the record that through the Complete Count Committee, there's been obviously consternation about that rationale being cited as the reason why. And so there continues to be a lot of work happening. Door counting begins in Ramsey County this week, and so any opportunity you have to continue to push that is important. And while not directly only to COVID, it's important in a moment of COVID that we mention the census. Finally, two things I just have to mention before we end. Also, we have been in dialogue with our school districts, had a meeting last Wednesday with public health and all our public school districts. There have been charter conversations, as Commissioner Matas Castillo mentioned, also happening. And the schools are doing a great job of trying to figure out impossible circumstances as well. And I just want to acknowledge that the guidelines from the state are both helpful, but not all directive in terms of the decisions that each local district needs to make. And I want to applaud our superintendents and their entire teams for the work happening to figure out a path forward. We're meeting again this Thursday as a part of that process as well. And we're continuing to meet with them now as an ongoing dialogue to ensure that information is available. And finally, I'll leave you on a real happy note. First meeting of the day yesterday was with our navigators, who are staff from across this organization who have become managers or frontline navigators or customer support specialists as a part of the vision for our next phase of opening that we've talked about with all of you through 2 workshops about a month ago. Their orientation day was yesterday. And in the coming weeks, we're going to launch the new navigator model, and we're going to learn a lot over the next 6 months while it remains in a temporary role as we ramp up towards the permanent long-term status. But the room of folks that I was having an opportunity to spend a few minutes with yesterday, I just want to tell you, you have wonderful leadership at all levels, stepping up and raising their hand to be a part of serving this community and being a part of bringing that complexity onto ourselves to alleviate some of the complexity that otherwise residents face when they walk in our doors. And it's a challenge. And the coronavirus expands and exacerbates that challenge, but it was one that's existed far before this as well. And I just want to give a special shout out to those navigators and everyone who's worked on this model, to all of you for the feedback. Can't wait to talk about it more. We'll make some sites available. We'll figure out a safe way to show more of what those sites look like as they open up in the model, but I will end on that point, Madam Chair.
Thank you very, very much. I need to double check. I do have electronic cans still raised, but I don't think that they're real. So I'll give you a moment to put them down or leave them up as should be. Reiterating the many thanks that have gone out to our staff and to staff who have, during this incredible emergency period, also been working to normalize the day-to-day and regular support. You know, as I see the immense work that is happening, focused on services to ensure that we're up and running and that people are able to get real service from us during even this emergency. And I know the intense efforts that are taking place at the same time focused on the emergency. I just have to continue to applaud and reiterate our thanks to staff who are making it look like business as usual, but enhanced, while we know that nothing is usual or normal at this point in time. So thank you for their extra efforts, for their going beyond business as usual to learn from this period and to implement those things which work better for all of us. I do see 2 hands still raised, and so I am going back to call on Commissioner McGuire and Commissioner Matas Castillo. Commissioner McGuire?
Madam Chair, I'm not sure what you're seeing. I lowered my hand, so
Gotcha.
Thank you. Yeah.
Maybe I just have to refresh or something.
Yeah,
then.
maybe
Thank
refresh, but thank
Is
you,
that
Madam
true
Chair, thank you for checking back. I appreciate it.
Commissioner Matas Castillo, is the same true?
Yes,
Okay, my
I
screen
do not
just
have a
shows it. All right. So I may have difficulty seeing hands in the future then, because that's the 2 I have up. I will just say thank you for the update and note that we are finishing up our COVID-19 update, but also maintaining the ability to just take one moment of silence. It will be a brief moment of silence as we recognize the impact, the leadership, and the learning that is happening during this period. A moment of silence, please. Thank you for that brief moment. I'm reminded as we share together about the fact that there are people, even on our staff in Ramsey County, who have been suffering the impacts of COVID, who have lost family members, who are economically impacted as well, and who certainly have suffered the distress throughout the period of unrest following the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis. So we continue that moment. We are at our point then of moving on in our workshop. Per our new structure of service teams, we have service team committees of the whole. And our committee of the whole will meet in its part 2 workshop, and we'll call on Commissioner Pretham to lead that workshop. Thank you, Commissioner Pretham.
Thank you. County Manager, do we need to take a couple minutes to transition to the workshop?
Madam Chair, thank you for the question. How about like a quick 3 to 5 minutes, and then we'll be ready to roll.
Perfect. Let's take 3 to 5.
So Karen, are we on?
I think you're okay.
Okay.
Well, just don't swear.
Like, as my usual
That's
conversation.
generally a good rule in the chambers. I try to follow it.
You just want me to just press it forward on the timeline?
I think I'm just gonna.
You're gonna review that?
I'm gonna review this quickly and then we'll get right up to.
This one.
Yeah. I have no idea.
Yeah, right there.
I mean, it's time. I think it's just time related. It's a huge deal. So it's dumb when they don't do stuff like that because they're gonna wish they did there. I'm gonna bring it back for county connections next week, and I'll do it then. We have a regular meeting next week, right?
I'm trying to remember. I think actually this was supposed to be a regular meeting. I think there may be, what's going on next week?
Well, this was supposed to be the IPR. So we're gonna keep going with that. So I think next week is gonna be, we moved IPR to September because of the hybrid. So I think that's what it is. I think. But whatever.
Hey.
Hey, Ryan, how old are your kids now?
3 and 5.
County Manager, are we ready to get started?
Do you think this is going to be enough time till noon to get through what you have? 60 minutes. Oh, okay. All right, good.
This is the spot where I'm actually really seeing the best of that right now, and everybody else is like, I don't know how it's supposed to be.
Okay, so we're supposed to expect them to work. I think that's I'm psyched to be here.
I know I'm still trouble.
Council Chambers?
This is Janet speaking. Yes. Commissioner Fretham?
Yes, are we ready to begin?
I'm waiting on Commissioner. Oh, are you ready? Are you going to restart? Okay.
We're ready.
I think we're ready to go.
We're ready? Yeah. I think we've taken our 3 to 5 minutes, and I'm sure Commissioner Ortega will be joining us shortly. So, and I know we've got about an hour of content, and I don't want to run too much past noon since I know we have a 1:30. So let's get started, and I'm sure Commissioner Ortega will join us shortly. We are reconvening. Oh, see, there he is. Perfect timing. We are reconvening for our Health and Wellness Service Team, Service Action Team Committee of the Whole. We had left off last time hearing about the Child Welfare Reset from Director Ann Berry. I am thinking that Deputy County Manager Karen Soltis may be back to kick us off to introduce Jennifer Schuster-Jagger, who is going to talk about IT modernization. So hopefully turning it over to the council chambers.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Thank you again for the opportunity to continue the conversation from our workshop on July 28th. Just to level set us, I'm going to walk through a very brief review of our previous session. So if we can go to the slide. Thank you. So at the last session, we talked about numbers 1, 2, and 3. Number 1 being the Advancing Racial Equity and Community Engagement. That was Sarah Hawley, our Racial and Health Equity Administrator. The second item was Justice Reform, and that was Director John Clavens. And the third item was Child Welfare Reset, and that was our Director of Social Services, Ann Berry. So now we are on to the fourth item, which is the IT modernization. We will also be discussing early childhood after that. And then we will end with some discussions about future RBAs with Director Ann Berry. And then I will finish it up with one final RBA. So now I'm going to pass it along to our interim Director of Health and Wellness Administration, and that is Jennifer Schuster-Jagger.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you, Board. This is my first time before you, and last time we had all these other people who were nervous that went first, and I was feeling very at home with that, and today we don't have anyone who's nervous before me. So I want to thank Karen and the Board for this opportunity to serve as the interim Director for Health and Wellness Administration. Health and Wellness Administration, we are the people who are behind the scenes, who help make all the things that you just heard about, the Child Welfare Reset, Justice Reform. We support all those things from behind the scenes. We help provide the technology, we help provide the accounting, the financial, the planning, the data. We are behind the scenes. So although we don't work directly with residents, we do work with residents because we serve our employees who serve our residents. And their work is essential and our work is essential. So I want to talk just a little bit about technology modernization. And as we know from both our presentation this morning when we got sort of stuck at the beginning of the meeting, or as we're trying to work in all these new ways, technology is really a backbone of our service provision, especially right now during COVID. And we really need our technology systems to work well, to be sustainable, to be up to date, to be reliable. And we want to have technology systems that really help our folks do their work efficiently so that we can provide high quality services to residents. So there's two pieces of our strategic priority around technology, and they all relate to better service provision for residents, although you don't always see that every day. Our electronic health records implementation is actually some good news. We, throughout COVID, have continued to deploy our electronic health record. We have done deployment at the mental health center and for our crisis teams during the COVID crisis. We've learned how to train remotely. We have gotten those folks going. We also have our electronic health record alive at detox and at public health, and we'll be expanding into correctional health. We'll also be talking not only about, as we move forward, our electronic health record, but all of our technology support for healthcare provision. And as you all have probably experienced personally, telehealth is now the way that so much of our services are provided for ourselves and for our clients. And we are going to need to have a telehealth set of tools. We've started doing that, but we'll need to be continuing to provide telehealth. And so as part of our healthcare provision and our technology supporting healthcare provision, we'll be working with IS and our other partners to continue to explore and ensure that we have some telehealth capacity as well. So the electronic health record is moving well. We're expanding into looking at healthcare services and really having technology to support healthcare services. The other place that we are working on is overall technology modernization for our other services, and those, whether we call them safety net services or support services or maybe people care services, these are the services that help our people thrive who live here. For example, 1 in 3 Ramsey County residents receives medical assistance. Well, there's a whole technology system related to medical assistance that the state runs and that we need to interact with. Also, our housing systems, all of our social services, our child welfare, our adult protection. These are all important technology systems that we need to access well, and access seamlessly. And we also need to work with the state on that. And some of these systems are quite old, and it can really be a challenge to work with them. And I'm not sure that we have always invested as much as we should in keeping our technology current. So we need to invest in modernization, and we're taking steps in that direction. We've seen in other parts of the county how technology modernization can work. We've seen this in IPR. We've seen it in corrections. We've seen it with the electronic health record. And now it's time for us to do this with the rest of our services that serve people in social services, veteran services, and financial assistance. Our first step is going to be to develop a picture of what we want to do. When you're starting a big project, you want to know where you're going. You want to have a picture, an architecture. Then you want to have a blueprint that grows out of your architect's drawings, and then you want to have a construction schedule. And so for the next few months, we'll be growing an architecture, a blueprint, and a roadmap for our technology modernization program. That will take us through the end of 2020. And in 2021, we'll be moving into making those changes and starting to implement that roadmap. We will also, through this project, be looking at how other counties are solving these problems. Every county in the state needs to work with our state systems, and other counties are solving the same problems we are. So we'll be looking to see how other counties are working with the state systems and see if we can build on that. We're also going to be engaging our residents and our staff in this process of building this picture. We have built that into our project plan for modernization. I think this is a step in the right direction to engage the people who are served at every step in the decision-making process, and our staff as well. So we're kicking that off this month, and look forward to seeing that go forward, and anticipate that technology modernization will be a 3 to 5 year project focusing in these areas. So that is the strategic plan, and I would stand for any questions.
Looking to, Commissioner Reinhardt.
Yes, thank you. I just so appreciate this being called out as one of the major things that we need to do, because you're right. I mean, a cord got kicked out this morning, and we were all trying to figure out what to do. But the technology side of this is so critically important. I've been involved in geographic information systems, geospatial data, for quite some time, since I came on to the board. And the reality is that when you're trying to get things done, It's the data and the access and being able to reach out to people that really need the services. And so it is good that it is called out separately here, because it really is the basis for all the work we do in the other areas. So that technology modernization and the plan that you have in place, I'm really pleased to hear how that is moving forward, and it'll make a huge difference in the way we serve people in our county. Thank you.
Thank you.
So not seeing other questions, I do have a few. Are there specific state-run programs for which Ramsey County is looking to create alternative technology solutions?
Overall, I would say we're not looking to create alternative technology solutions. These services that we're talking about are really, they are both their state-county partnership, and we need to be in partnership with the state on this. So the question is, how do we build on top of and integrate those state systems into what we do and make that sustainable? But we would not want to be replacing those. So there come a number of limitations in how we respond, because we do need to work cooperatively with the state. And we will be also, like I said, looking to see how other counties have done this, because we all have some really common challenges in how we interact with the state and how the state manages their technology as well. So we'll see if there's things that we can build off of or ways we can work with other counties so we don't go it alone. I think it has been a mistake to go it alone as a county, that we end up having an evolutionary branch that goes off of the state technology systems, and it's very hard to rejoin it after when things continue to change. And so we will be looking at where the state systems are and how we can work cooperatively to interact with those.
And I see you, Mary Jo, I have one other question. How will these efforts integrate with the state's efforts on systems modernization?
We'll be working with the state. We will be working with someone who has served at DHS and then also at Hennepin County as a member of our modernization team, and then working closely with Minute to see where they're going and to see what kind of timeline they're on, so that we can take advantage of the things that the state has already built, and look forward to, they've got some good ideas for additional integrations and some integration tools, and we will use those whenever we possibly can.
Awesome. And sorry, Mary Jo, one more thing. I think there's also a lot of opportunities in these efforts to engage with us in terms of looking at, and this, I say this only because, Mary Jo, you might want to speak to it next, engaging with our legislative platform next year in terms of asking for bonding proposals in 2021. I think the state hasn't really considered or dove into technology bonding to upgrade our state systems, and that's it's an underused area because of the great need to update these technologies. You're right, our Maxis system is built on COBOL, which is ancient, and it's impossible to find programmers to update it, and it's a major need because it's so old, and it's not built in a way that's intuitive, and it makes it really hard for us to develop those sort of platforms where you could just, pick up your phone and enter your information and apply, the way that families right now, a lot of folks don't have a desktop computer. They don't have a fax machine to fax in the information that people need, but they've got a phone where they could just apply. Most families have that because it's a piece of technology you need, and when you're in crisis and you don't have a mailing address to receive mail and paperwork, but you do have a phone, making accessible those services is so critical. So updating those back-end technologies. So again, back to that idea of shifting complexity and bureaucracy and modernizing it is so critical. I think looking at how can we support those efforts, especially in that legislative platform, and be that wing of support and lift those to higher levels. Engaging in that now. So Mary Jo, I'm calling on you now.
Thanks. Great. Good handoff. Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate that, because you did make me think of that whole effort that we should be looking at, and I appreciate that great suggestion of technology bonding. I think in light of all of our technology needs, even even magnified with the pandemic. I think this is a really good step that we should be looking at. I wanted to ask you, Jennifer, about, or Director Schuster-Jaeger, sorry, about the METs. AMC had a working group that was dealing with METs, and it's a technology consortium, or I'm not even sure what it stands for, but I know that there were a lot of counties that were really working on how they were going to, coordinate their technology with what the state was doing, and they were looking for state aid on that. And I'm not sure if you were familiar with that working group, and I'm not sure where that's at, but I know that there was a statewide effort to really coordinate county IT systems with the states, and we were looking for help from the state on that. Can you comment on that, or are you familiar with that, or did some of that get resolved? Or if that's not something that you're familiar with, then I can get some more information on that. But then I can go another place for that.
Commissioner McGuire, Chair, no, I'm not familiar with that work group, but that would be the kind of work group we want to become familiar with and to see where they've gone. So if you have any additional information, would really welcome that.
And
Thank you.
Commissioner McGuire, I'll just add one piece too. Director Berry herself or some of her team have had some level of involvement here, I think. So it's one of these pieces where we can connect some dots on our end too, and we'll follow up with you on that.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I think the work group has had some success, so I'm not even sure they're still meeting. So that may be why you're not familiar with it, because they might have moved on to a different level. So I need to do some checking on my end as well, but thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right, I don't see any further questions, so I think we can move to our next piece of the proposal, or next piece of the presentation, which is the early childhood topic. And I think Director Schuster-Jaeger, you are on deck for this one as well, along with Director Kathy Hadeen and Ann Berry.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Threatham. So the Early Childhood Initiative is something that we've been working on, and this board has been deeply involved with for some time. Commissioners McGuire and Carter and yourself have all been engaged, and I know that the board as a whole has been really supportive. This really ties into our strategic priority about advancing a holistic approach to strengthen youth and families. And families include our youngest members, our smallest children, and our children who today are being born, and our young children who a large proportion of their lives are being spent in this COVID emergency. And so as all of this is going on, I think the importance of our youngest residents, our youngest families, it's really essential, because they'll be continuing to develop as this goes on. Their development doesn't stop just because we have a COVID emergency. And so we need to make sure that young children and their families are connected to resources that help them grow and develop to their fullest potential, no matter what else is happening around them, because children grow no matter what happens. And so we are trying to focus on children and families with young children 0 to 5. So at this time of life, that's a critical time of development, and their needs are great. And we know that parents and families and communities are the greatest teacher of children. And so how do we strengthen them? And how do we build a strong foundation for this work so that our systems support young families? And this county has done system work before, systems change work. We've done it with JDAI. We've done it with transforming systems together. We actually know how to look at and connect interconnected systems and how to start to transform those systems. And that's part of the work that we need to embark on with this population, with the population of our youngest children. And we think that we have lots of opportunities. We have many systems that Ramsey County operates that serve young families. Our parks, our workforce centers, our medical assistants, our WIC, our libraries, so many places, so many parts of Ramsey County touch young children. And we also know we have a lot of community resources. We have Help Me Grow, we have the African American Babies Coalition, we have Early Head Start, and many others. And we have a role here to make sure that these families and these services are connected, and that as a county we have a way to make those connections happen and to make it a part of how we do business, to make this a part of our systems change, so that we are designing our services so that children and families connect. We're designing our spaces so children and family connect, and we're building this into our new service centers that we are opening so that we hardwire or we bake in family connections between young families and services into our design. So that's the systems change part of the early childhood component, and that's one of the things we're going to be working on. And then Directors Barry and Hadeen are going to talk about the upstream prevention and the community engagement part of this work.
All right. As you know, there are many avenues for families into programs through prevention services in the Public Health Department with Child Teen Checkups, which is Minnesota's early periodic screening, diagnosis, and treatment program, WIC, family home visiting. We have Club Mom, Club Dad, parents as teachers. There's many programs. These primarily upstream and prevention programs work by monitoring growth and development, screen for concerns, and then address those concerns. Public health can potentially house a very specific coordinator role for families who would benefit from early childhood resources. This navigator or coordinator of early childhood services and programs would help to make seamless connections for families who benefit from multiple early childhood resources from across the county system. Currently, or prior to COVID-19, WIC was partnering with Early Childhood Family Education, St. Paul Public Schools, and the City of St. Paul's College Bound program to make connections for families to schools to ensure kindergarten readiness. The potential for public health playing a more embedded and intentional coordinator role allows tens of thousands of children in Ramsey County to have access to some of the most important resources families and young children need in order to grow and thrive. Public health family home nurses as well as WIC staff work to screen 3-year-olds through the Help Me Grow program, as Jennifer alluded to, for developmental behaviors, and if they are screened for supports, will get connected to early childhood education and St. Paul Public School and to the St. Paul Public Schools. This referral through the Early Childhood Initiative would allow staff from across the county system to know whether a child is on the right path to be successful youth and adults. In addition to the coordinator role, a software tool must be invested in or developed to safely share this information across our county system in a way that allows community data to be protected, and Director Barry will speak to that. Yet an efficient process needs to happen to be developed so we aren't duplicating services, ensuring that we build on the strengths of the family through multiple early childhood programs. And I'll turn it over to Ann to finish up this topic.
And thank you both to Jennifer and to Kathy. Jennifer talked about why this initiative is important or why this work is important, and Kathy talked about the what this work is. My responsibility here today is to talk about who and how we get this work done, which is we do it in partnership with community. I've not been with Ramsey County very long, but I feel like I am a historian when it comes to the Joint Powers Agreement and so the pain that we all hold and the work that went on with community following the dissolution of that agreement. And the promise we made was that we would continue to evolve community from the start of any discussion of especially the youngest children in our community. So part of my job is to remind people and then to commit to that, doing this work together. So one of the first town halls we will be doing around early childhood services will include members who were part of the healing circles with the county manager, members of the board, members of our leadership. They have all been invited to participate as planners for the town hall, not just participants at the town hall, but planners for this community town hall. I'm proud that we are maintaining that commitment to the community and their involvement in how this work gets shaped and what it looks like. And then the second thing I'd emphasize is community's voice in non-traditional services. So Kathy talked a lot about the traditional services, as did Jennifer, a lot of the traditional services that we do make available to children and families in our community. I also want us to think about the non-traditional services, the service providers who haven't been a part of our system. And community always always brings voice to that as well. So how we do this work is as important as what we're doing and who we're serving. I think we all agree on the why. We need to meet families where they are with their children much earlier in life, and this will help us do so. So thank you.
I will start with Chair Carter. To your hand.
Thank you very much. You know, as always, if you listen long enough, you probably hear what you're listening for. And that is certainly true in this presentation. I wanted to applaud the work that's happening, focusing on upstream prevention and also focusing on community and community voice. And as we proceeded in this presentation, we have talked not just about those services that are internal to Ramsey County, which we provide, but we've talked, given the models that we have seen and that we've been employing in past years, about the importance of that community alternative. And knowing that as we embed and connect our families, our young families in particular, to the natural supports that exist in the community, in addition to those traditional supports which we have been responsible for, we're all going to be better able to build communities of capacity. I was going to ask about that, but certainly Director Amberry just underscored that point. And so rather than ask about it, let me just appreciate it so very much. And that first town hall is being planned by community is an illustration, by and with community, of course, is an illustration of how serious we are about that and the extent to which we are going to ensure that the plans we put together not only involve community, but that they're embedded in and with community, and that they are building a capacity for a community that is able to, together with the systems that serve it, provide for the upbringing, the health, safety, and well-being of our youngest members. And that, of course, includes every member of the family as well. So thank you. That is my non-question. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Carter. Commissioner McGuire.
I may have a non-question as well, but you never know when I'm through with recognizing all the great work, I may end up with a question at the end as well. But just to acknowledge the work of all of you. I mean, 3 greater rock stars in our county, Director Schuster-Yeager, Hadeen, and Barry. Oh my goodness, the work that you're embarking on and continuing on with is really tremendous. But I also want to acknowledge the work of our board. It's exciting to be a member of a board where every single person on our board is a champion for this issue. And starting Commissioner Reinhardt with her graduate program, with her graduate degree, her doctoral degree in early childhood, and Commissioner Carter with all of your strong advocacy on the prenatal to 3 Pritzker, and Commissioner Fretham coming in now and just continuing to champion these, and Commissioner Manis Castillo, Ortega, and McDonough. We've all just are such champions for this work. And then to see it coming into fruition with systems change, because none of us want this to be a program. We don't want it to be one and done. We don't want it to be, okay, this one person is in charge of that. But I was so appreciating that you called it a specific public health coordinator for early childhood. So it's someone who's gonna make sure that it's being coordinated around all of our entities, because this is systemic work that we need to have. And I'm just so grateful for how we're describing this and how we're thinking about it and how we're engaging community. I also am one of the newer, although I can't say that very much anymore, board members, but appreciating Director Barry, the trauma that we had with trying to, get some of this work started earlier, and how we really need to work with community more on how this coordination can all happen. And so just so grateful for the healing circles, the community voice in non-traditional settings, and how we are just doing all of this work together. So just to add my thanks, my gratitude, my support to all of our efforts, and am just very thankful that it's one of our big five, the big five initiatives that we're working on here. So thank you so much. I'm sure I have a question somewhere, but I'm gonna let it go. I'll think of it after you've stopped calling on me. But yeah, so thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McGuire. I don't see any other hands, so grateful again for the presentation and for these efforts. I think so often we get in early childhood bogged down on specifics and weeds, this curriculum or that, and I think focusing here on what's actually important in supporting kids is not what specific book you choose or curriculum you choose, but that kids live in families and in communities and in their culture, and that if we're not valuing those pieces, you're not valuing those children. So thank you for that presentation. This work, really excited to get to be a part of it moving forward. And next on our agenda is the preview of upcoming board items. So turning it over to Director Ann Berry.
And how about, as they make the transition, Madam Chair, if I could just add one piece to a number of these topics. It ties back to where the board meeting started today, and I think it's helpful. It is that hopefully you see, and I heard this in some of the comments, and you're seeing the transition from an organization that says, when is engagement with community important, to a default that it is always an important part of the work. And from the day when you start the work, it needs to be important as a part of the work, not at the end of that project. And so when I spoke this morning about the need to think about how to leverage those existing systems and structures and processes now being put in place, you just heard a few more. You heard some more on the justice work when we talked last time, the child welfare reset when you talked last time. Today you hear about it through the early childhood lens. I mentioned the St. Paul Indians in Action work. We can talk about the community catalysts and TST. I'm running out of breath, so I'll stop. But the idea being that it's through that process where you build trusted relationships in many different areas with all corners of the community, and it doesn't feel like it has to be a special thing then to do it every time. It needs to be an intentional thing, but not some unique thing that we're doing only once. And so we'll take that ethos into the conversation we had this morning about the chamber artwork, and I just wanted to make that point come home now as you heard some of the other programmatic work happening here today.
Thank you for that.
So I'm Social Services Director Ann Berry, and I'm going to talk about the items on this page. They are all parts of social services, although next Karen will talk about the official changing of some of these parts of social services. So they'll be included here, but we will officially be talking about what social services contains in the next proposal. So first up, we are going to be seeking a new license at our detoxification center, and the license that is being offered by the Department of Human Services is for withdrawal management. What we find in detox is clients come to us for 2 to 3 or 4 days, they leave us, they come back to us maybe months later. I mean, there has to be a place where we begin that process of withdrawal management. This is something that we have hired a new medical director, one who is on site and very engaged in this work. There's also been lots of changes, not just because of COVID, but Regions has dropped its adult chemical dependency program. We're seeing that there's a possibility that, St. John's may do the same. So we have to be in a position not only to serve clients in detoxification programs, but to make the chances of greater success for a life without substance abuse and drug abuse is possible. So this will also be a revenue increase for us. So right now, detox programs are fully funded by levy that you provide for us. This will now provide Medicaid resources to the county to provide these withdrawal management services. So you will be seeing that as one of the upcoming board items. Lake Owasso residence is undergoing some changes as well. We've talked about some of those, but one of the things we know we need to do is because, and this is more directly related to the COVID pandemic, but we would like to actually be licensed as a day provider. We are providing day services right now on campus because the people who live with us need day programming during the day. But there are clients who live with us who are over 55, and we've been working with the Department of Health on this. We really believe that these clients should not return to day programming outside of the campus. The risk is just too great. Their family members agree. We've been working with family members on this, so we're going to seek a license through DHS to be a day training program, and which means we will also increase our revenues for these programs. We won't be using staff overtime to fund them. We'll actually get a daily rate that is reasonable and reflects the costs of the program. Next up is the Ramsey County Care Center. And both the Lake Owasso residence change and the Ramsey County Care Center change came as a result of let me take a step back. We actually had assessments of the Lake Owasso residents and the Ramsey County Care Center. The Lake Owasso residents recommendations we've moved away from, although the day programming one is that change is one that I think is valuable for us. With the Ramsey County Care Center, there was a lot of recommendations that were made to us about how we can upgrade our services and improve our services and really be a care center of the future. One was our immediate need to address both the revenue and cost issues. We overspend in their care center. So what were we going to do to increase revenues? Well, we've done some things already. I'm grateful to our new administrator, Mike Schultz, who has actually helped us do a better job of focusing in on the upfront assessment of people and what they need. So we're getting higher revenue. But we also need to make some other permanent changes. And one, I think, is moving to private rooms. Now, COVID has made that easier for us, but people want to live in private rooms. That's where they want to be, in nursing homes. That's what they've told us. That's what families have told us. We don't have any private rooms right now, officially private rooms, but we are going to be creating more private rooms. And finally, we currently have a license for 164 beds at the care center. We've only been budgeted, I think, at about 145 of those beds. Right now, we're only using 110 of those beds, 110 to 115 of those beds during COVID. We really think it's time for us to give up some of this bed capacity. That will save us some money. We won't be paying a surcharge on every one of those beds. We won't be staffing up to a higher level. And at the same time, we think we can, well, not only will we increase our revenues, but we'll be able to decrease our costs. So expect to see some changes around the Ramsey County Care Center, and we'll talk a little bit more about the recommendations that an outside organization has provided to us about what we need to do over the longer term. And finally, we're working, you'll be seeing a request for board action on expanded mental health services for the African American community in Ramsey County. Right now, we have an assessment being done by a mental health provider called Empower. They are also partners to both the programs that we created, Journey of Hope and Rebound. It's actually the Jelani Home. They were services specifically for the African American community. One of the things that both the community and service providers have told us is we do not have a lot of capacity to serve the mental health needs and the emotional needs of the the African American community. This is just a start for us, but we're also using the SBEQ process through contracting to seek out mental health providers in this space. We'll be doing the same going forward in the Latinx community, in the Hmong community, and also in the American Indian community. So we want you to know that we are working hard using our processes and working with those processes that exist at the contract level, but specifically partnering with community to build the capacity that doesn't currently exist here.
Thank you, Director Berry. I see a few hands. I saw Commissioner McGuire's hand first.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much, Director Berry. This is really, really great work. So I do have a couple of questions and then a a couple of comments. You said that Regions dropped their adult chemical dependency program, and just if you could give any more background on that. And I see that we're using it as an opportunity to build up our own, and it goes to a bigger question, and this may not be the time to do this, but what is the status of our providing chemical dependency programming for, and I could ask the question because it'll come up a little bit in a few seconds in my comments, for chemical dependency programming and also for mental health, you know, any emergency mental health programming or housing, or, you know, where people can go when they have either a chemical dependency or a mental health issue, and we don't want to bring them to one of our correctional facilities. Just those are three types of questions in one.
Sure. Madam Chair and Commissioner McGuire, I'll do my best to sort those out, all three of them.
Yeah.
But we found out that Regions was closing what they call their ADAP program. We found that out when Commissioner McDonough had gotten a request from a community member who actually worked there and is building up now a community-based program. And so it came as a surprise to us that this resource that's been a resource for children and for families with children who are struggling with substance abuse issues in their family, right? So they actually had a program that brought in family members and children. So we now have a community member. We actually have two proposals. One that came to us from Lorene Wade Randall, and now this one woman, Michaeline, and I'm going to have to get her last name, but she came to us, and they both want to develop programs to serve families struggling with substance abuse issues in the community and serve them with their families. So they have housing arrangements, they have partnerships with chemical dependency providers, so to your first question, we didn't know that Regions was closing its program, which begged a question for me, which is how much do we know about our systems and our needs assessment? So started on a process of working both with DHS and I haven't reached out to Director Hedin yet, but will, about what services currently exist in Ramsey County to meet the again, for people living with substance abuse issues. So I think that was two parts of your question. The one part about mental health services, we are, as you know, we are co-responding with law enforcement. We are now going to build that out with other law enforcement across the entire county. We met with them. Scott Williams invited us to a meeting of all the sheriffs, and they were all very interested in participating with us, and we have the capacity to do that, and we have 24/7 crisis services as well. We just haven't, we work closely with the city of St. Paul. They actually have an embedded staff person, but we really haven't gotten much response from the rest of the community, so we need to follow up. The work we did with them was pre-COVID, and so now I think it's time for us to just follow up with each of the local law enforcement agencies and have that same conversation about our availability to provide services to people living in, who are living with mental health crises and mental health issues. Did I catch all of your?
Just a location. Do we have enough capacity for a place where they can go to? I just didn't know what our capacity was for dealing with people with mental illness, if we have places for them to go. So they're not necessarily in a hospital. We definitely don't want them in a correctional facility. We want them somewhere else. And I thought some of our residents, we were going to look at that maybe with some of our capacity in some of our other places.
Yes, Commissioner and Madam Chair and Commissioner, there is one more project we're working on. We did seek a grant from the Department of Human Services to build up more facility-based capacity in Ramsey County to serve people with mental health issues. Those are intermediate. They're called IRTs. They're residential treatment services, and why I can't remember the name, sorry. but they're a level of care. They're below a hospital level of care, but they provide more residential support. So, for example, Regions has some A number of our contracted providers have them, but Hennepin County actually runs a number of its programs, like in apartments or in other larger congregate environments, and they've been very successful at keeping people out of a higher level of hospitalization, which is something we want to do right now because of COVID. So we are working with DHS to build up some capacity here to provide more services. Mostly what we find people need, though, is earlier in the system supports and services so that people get, again, the emotional support they need. And in a time of COVID, there is such isolation that our staff have really had to move to more direct contact, with all the proper equipment. But we couldn't really see how people were doing when we were doing telehealth work. Mental health is one of those areas where you can do some work using telehealth services, but you need to see how people are living, how they're doing day to day, and if they're taking their medications, and some of those things you just can't see using telehealth. So we've started to make visits in adult protection to seeing people with all the proper precautions, and we're gonna need to continue to do that.
And I appreciate that. Thank you, and I support whatever we can do in that effort. Madam Chair, I just have one other comment, and this is I heard from a parent of a person at our Lake Owasso residence, and she was thanking us for the work that it's apparent to this parent that work is being done and we're moving forward in a positive way at the Lake Owasso residence. So she thanked me and us, Ramsey County, for their work in a positive direction in that area. So thank you for that. I just wanted to share that with you, that they're seeing some changes there that they appreciate. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Mattis-Castillo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to ask about Lake Owasso, because I wondered if we're going to have another workshop at some point to go a little bit deeper, because last year we had some initial, we hired an outside agency to give us a report. You mentioned that there were some recommendations, but we're moving away from those recommendations, and so I'm a little confused as to what direction we're going at Lake Owasso with the beds there. And then the question about the day program licensure, which makes sense, would then it would be only for the residents currently living there. We wouldn't bring in or open it up to community. Right now, day programs, as you probably know, are in crisis. A lot of day programs were closed during COVID. Some have opened, some will never reopen. And so there's a lot of folks across Ramsey County in desperate need of those day programs. So just wondered kind of what the thought there is.
So, Madam Chair and Commissioner Mattis-Castillo, let me take the second part first. We will only serve our clients at the day program, and those are clients who would be at risk of leaving the campus because of their age and because of their underlying health conditions. I personally, and I don't think we have any interest in competing with others who are providing day programs, and I would say for anyone who can leave campus, there's a real benefit to people who can leave the facility and go to work, meet other people. I mean, we can't do that right now, but over time, that's what we want to be able. That's what we want people to be able to do, right? To live the most integrated life, as part of the Olmsted principles. So this is only to serve clients who have underlying health conditions and really shouldn't leave us, and shouldn't leave us going forward as people get older. To the first report that we received, as you recall, the recommendation was for closure. We talked about that with staff and with family and with the community and with you and with others, and it felt like it wasn't the right right recommendation. But thinking about what the future looked like is the conversation we've been having with staff and families. So both the interim administrator and I are now on a monthly call with families, and we talk about what they want to see in the future. I mean, We also looked at alternatives for Lake Owasso, but we're limited. DHS has made it really clear, and in spite of really good relationships I might have with people and work on the Jensen settlement, it is a flat-out no to providing waivered services on campus. They will just say absolutely no. But there are other options for us, and that's what we've been talking with staff and families about. Like I talked about the treatment services for people living with mental health issues. We could do that on the campus. There's something called a Rule 5 facility that is for young people who need a slightly more secure environment than foster homes or foster facilities usually provide. We could do that on campus. So there are other things we could do. Our census hasn't grown, but it also hasn't reduced, and that's because we haven't been able to transfer anyone into the community. We just don't think it's safe right now. So I think we should probably come back. I'll have to again consult with Director Hadeen about the right time to come back and talk about what a future looks like without COVID, but or a future looks like where people can begin to move around again and live in other environments. That's at least 6 months to a year from now. So for right now, we're really pretty status quo.
If I could just jump on the back end of Director Berry's comment too. I think these items we're trying to flag as the idea that they do require additional conversation as we go forward and potential board action. So Commissioner Matas-Castillo, to where you started in suggesting that, I think we wholeheartedly would agree. I think what we've tried to do during this period when everything has been challenging and uncertain, and we're trying to ensure that the most vulnerable among us are protected first, that Director Berry has worked with her team to continue to listen to families in the meantime, acknowledging that that's an important step in this process. But we would agree that we need to have additional conversation with the board moving forward.
Great, thank you. And one follow-up question on the Ramsey County Care Center. So I think our census has fallen a bit, so we have empty beds, but will there be a significant cost? I'm thinking it's budget time, right? A cost to making those individual rooms? Will there need to be modifications? I know there are currently shared rooms with shared bathrooms, and so what's the thought there?
So, Madam Chair and Commissioner Matas-Castillo, I do not think that there is an enormous cost to changing a single room, what is now a double room to a single room. So there's just a lot more space that'll be in the room. And as far as I can tell, we have not budgeted to the capacity of 164 beds for, well, at least since I've been in Ramsey County, and it's probably been a much longer period of time. So we have not been using all the capacity that we have had. So when we think of giving up beds, I don't think we're not losing revenue because we haven't been filling those beds for years. And so we would pick out the right number of private beds. We'd try to work with families, again, with the community about what's the right mix of private beds and double rooms. We still provide transitional care in all of our in our facility, and we still provide transitional care generally in 2-person rooms.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Reinhardt.
Thank you. Well, I think one of the things that this shows is just how much we have changed in the way we look at a number of these issues. In the past, I think there's been a lot of focus on, trying to get something that was more uniform across the board here. And what we have transitioned to, and I think it's very good, is looking at the individual needs and the continuum of care from early childhood, as we talked about earlier, to seniors, to people with disabilities, and everything in between. And so in the past, I know that we've done things really looking more from the budget side, but that transition, as I was saying, has gone to what do we need to do and how does that impact the budget, which is a different lens to look through, and I think it's an important one. So I appreciate all of the bullets here that talk about what is it that we're really trying to accomplish for our residents. And again, at all levels and, from the beginning of life to the end of life, trying to figure out how do we deal with these really important issues. I would like to comment on the mental health services issue. I can tell you that the largest suburb in Ramsey County, which is Maplewood, has really wanting to step forward on this. Again, as we've heard so many times today, we had meetings set up that were early in the year, and then COVID happened, and so now we're finally getting back to some of the things that we had started before. But I know that there's a recognition, and has been a recognition, and Commissioner Matas-Castillo has been helping, or been working on that as well, to try to make sure that we're getting that we are collaborating with the communities so that we can provide these services. Again, very resident focused, as we have been for quite some time. And I also think even with the Ramsey County Care Center and Lake Owasso residents, I mean, the fact is, we looked at this a number of years ago and said, okay, well, we're going to put a little over $1 million into each of these facilities. With the Ramsey County Care Center, that was pulled back when there was the promise from the state to fill in those funds, and then that didn't happen, and all ancient history at this point. But trying to figure out, again, not as much focused on, okay, what is the exact dollar amount, which is important in our budget process, absolutely. But how do we get the biggest bang for the buck? And how do we really meet the needs? And I think that, moving to the private rooms, I don't see a huge cost in that. And I think the potential positive outcomes for the residents and for the staff are very good. I assume that the permanent closure of layaway and the 22 additional beds is something that would help accommodate moving to the private rooms. And so I think, again, what this tells me is that we are really focused on what can we do for the individuals and how can we serve them the best. And so I feel better about the recommendations here because I don't feel like there's a huge fight that has to take place because we're all on the same page. Let's get this done. Let's not take a broad stroke to these issues, and sometimes we've had a tendency, and this goes back a few years, but have a tendency to do the broad strokes trying to deal with something. So again, this is from the beginning of this, and I know folks that are listening in today have only heard the last few parts of this workshop, but they can go back to the previous workshop on this to see the whole picture, because that's really what this is about. It's the whole picture. So I appreciate the preview of upcoming board items and having more discussion, but it really seems like we are walking the talk of residents first in each of these items. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Barry. I don't see any more hands raised, so I think at this point, the next thing on our agenda is the wrap up from Deputy County Manager's Office.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I was going to preview something that's going to be in front of you on September 1st, and that is the dissolution of healthcare services. But for the respect of everyone's time, I can follow up with something in written form to address that, and then you can respond to me with any questions. So as you heard from Director Barry, she is now supervising the Lake Owasso residents and the Ramsey County Care Center. So that happened in the fall of 2019. So she has been doing that. So with that, if there are no immediate questions regarding that topic, I will follow up in written form. But then I will close by saying thank you so much for your time today and the valuable input that you've given to our team during the past 2 workshops. Your ongoing support is really valued and appreciated. And I want to thank you for all your partnership in making Ramsey County a place where all are valued and thrive. And I wanted to, again, stress that the Health and Wellness Service Team works not alone, but works in partnership not only across our service team, but across the whole county and the work that we're doing. And we look forward to returning next quarter in October for the next committee of the whole. And I did just want to add too that on September 22nd, we do have a follow-up to a question that was raised at the last workshop, or an expansion, which was regarding the cognitive program at the Ramsey County Corrections Department. So we will be coming back to you on September 22nd with that information. I stand for any other questions you may have for this morning.
I am looking for hands, and I don't see any, so I will instead thank you and your team on behalf of all of us. Excellent work. Thank you for your ongoing perseverance. I know your team has been doing extra work in light of COVID and still doing these amazing things in spite of it all. So thank you for all of that and for being here today. With that, that wraps up the workshop portion of today's meeting. I will turn it back over to Chair Carter.
Thank you very much, Chair Fretham, for leading this workshop. I very much appreciate the participation of our leaders in sharing with us the conclusion of our health and wellness update in this committee of the whole meeting. I will just end or bring our meeting to closure by reminding board members of our closed executive session at 1:30 virtually today. We will see you all there. And with that, lacking additional business, this meeting of the Ramsey County Board of Commissioners is called to an end. Adjourn.
Yeah.